Hi, church family. This Monday afternoon, we'll look at our apologetics lesson here in just a moment. But I was hoping to have you help me with something, enlist your help. I'm good with doing all these videos, and I want it to be edifying, though. And I don't want it to just be something that is a blip on your Facebook feed that you just scroll by. And I realize not everybody's going to watch them or not everybody has time. That's not an issue at all. But I do need to know, kind of just like get some feedback. I need to know who's watching, how many people we have watching. So help me out. Let me know if you're watching. You can comment, whenever you watch it. You don't have to comment when it's live. You can, but you don't have to. And you can also comment, text me or whatever as well. Let me know if you're watching and when you're watching, how many of them you're able to watch or whatever. Also, help me to understand, like, is this something you really want to learn, or are there more things? Can I add something different to it? We can even pick up the systematic theology study. I just hate to do it because in the group setting, there's just able to be a little dialogue, and here there's not. So I feel like I'm cheating those people who've been in that study all this time because we've tried to learn together and be able to dialogue, and this kind of takes that opportunity away. But let me know if there's something in addition to this you want to learn, or if you're actually watching or whatever, and that'll help me understand how to proceed from here, okay? So apologetics, I want to start out today and this week with some considerations for you. First of all, we can and we must use spiritual resources as a primary resources when we talk about apologetics, okay? What I mean by that is that we must be prayerful. We must study the scriptures. We must be sensitive to God's leading through his Spirit. Those things have to happen, and the discipline of apologetics. In fact, they're primary. They have to happen. If we don't actually get beyond that, those things have to happen. One mistake I see most often is people don't have a significant grasp of the scriptures and don't have a strong theological foundation and try to jump into apologetics because it's interesting. We may hear someone say things that resonate with us, somebody doing an apologetics form or something they've read, written, and we read it, and it seems like something we like to hear, something that resonates, like, yeah, that's true. That's neat. I want to do what they do. Well, the problem with that is it's a lot more than that. Think of the Apostle Paul on Mars Hill. We use this as an example in Acts 17, how Paul ends up in Athens, and not only is he concerned for those unbelieving Jews in Athens, he's concerned for everyone, and he sees the idolatry of the place, and he goes to Mars Hill, and he pursues a conversation with people who were philosophers, and who would gather and consider, think, discuss all kinds of ideas. They were thinkers. This is what they did. That's the only thing they did. And I do think it's interesting that of all the people that end up on Mars Hill, who was it that we see going up to Mars Hill? We see it as Paul, the apostle. And this matters. Like, it wasn't Matthew, the tax collector. He was good at being a crook. He understood things like that. One thing he did not do is he did not have the kind of background to be able to handle himself around people who were professional thinkers. And so of all the people that God ends up putting on Mars Hill to interact with them, it's Paul. And there's a reason. He's equipped. He's the one that has the most education of all of them of the day. He had the deepest type of level of education that one could ever get in the first century. And that's who ends up on Mars Hill. And so we look at him and we think, well, that was clever. Hey, look at what he did. But the thing is, it was almost second nature to Paul. He was able to do these things because he had prepared himself spiritually, and he had learned so much. So he was well qualified, well able to go up there and speak to this where others may not be. we are just observers in this case of Paul as being this spiritually led, deeply knowledgeable man. He was somebody who made it look easy. Good apologists are like people who teach the scriptures well and know them well, and they make it look easy. It's not easy. It's second nature because of what they know and the time they've spent with it. A good example of this, I am a music lover like nobody's business. I was even a music major in college back about 3 decades ago. I didn't stick with it because it became not fun anymore. Um, and now, all these years later, I just mess around with it when I feel like it. And I'm not even good at it anymore. Okay, but I can appreciate something about it. Well, I also, as I'm a music lover, I love specifically some particular artists a lot more than others. One of the people I really enjoy is Merle Haggard. I thought Merle Haggard was not only a great singer and guitarist, but he was clever in his lyric writing. One of his most famous and clever songs he wrote on a napkin while eating a hamburger in a hotel room, and it took him 5 minutes. It was second nature to someone as gifted and as practiced as him to be able to write a masterpiece in 5 minutes. Now, take him and compare him to me, okay? I can play and I can sing that song that he wrote, okay? I can't do it well, but I can do it. I can't make myself comparable to him though. I don't have that kind of depth in lyrics and writing and guitar and singing. And the proof is, if you ask me to come up with an original, you probably don't like it too much. Neither will anyone else. And because I don't have that depth. Just because he makes it look easy doesn't mean it's easy. We have to become Bible students like no other if we wish to do apologetics well. So I post questions every day for you to find answers to, so you can see where you lack familiarity with the scriptures, and you can have a good understanding of just how much you know and how much you don't know, and maybe some of the places you need to look and some of the places you need to strengthen, so that you will be able to strengthen your understanding of your scriptures. Do the work of learning the scriptures inside out. Here's what I would say. I would say this. I don't even want to think that somebody should pick up an entry-level apologetics book until they understand 66 books of the Bible. And I'm very serious. So when I say spiritual resources first, it's essential. Because everything else you're setting yourself a trap to fail in. And this is an important enterprise. This is the gospel that we share with people. So it's very important that we do this. Some of you have taken advantage of our systematic theology on Monday nights, and I'm glad for you to do that. Some can't do that every Monday night or most Monday nights, whatever. I understand that too. That's also not a problem. But if you want to be a good apologist, then get involved in Monday nights when we get back to it, okay? Because it's systematic theology, and without understanding that, you don't really understand what you think you understand. And so it's really important to get involved in every level of spiritual learning and undergird this with prayer, undergird this with a good motive led by God, and then we will become good apologists by second nature, okay? So we have to be prayerful. We have to ask the Lord to sanctify us, to be people whose character is fit to defend the faith. And we must understand spiritual resources are first resources. You master those first before you move on to something else, okay? Second, we must understand who we need to consult and when we should consult them in terms of apologetics questions. As we use spiritual resources first and foremost, and as we become mature in our Christian character, as we become mature in our knowledge of the scriptures, we also get curious about resources beyond those things. And I think that's very good. It's very commendable. So let me give you some advice, okay? Not every YouTube video, not every blog, every website should be trusted. And I say that, some of you will be nodding your head, yes, like anybody would. But here's the thing, we actually say that, but then we tend to go find the things that say what we want them to say. Or we tend to listen to some things that are a little off the wall. We don't have enough of that first thing built, that first tier, those spiritual resources in place, the understanding of the word, the understanding of a good theological foundation, and then we go and we try to find what we think we can tell whether it is whether it's reliable sources or not. You can't tell if it's a reliable source if you don't know the first source material. And so it's not going to be possible to know that. So how are you going to know which ones to consult? Well, here's my first thing would be this. You have a pastor who has a graduate degree, a master's degree in apologetics. Ask me, okay? Ask me and I can help you with that. I could suggest a lot and go much deeper. But I don't see a need to unless you do step one first. In other words, what I'm saying is, if you will do step one, then you will be able to understand better how to do step two. And so what I would say is this: if I look at you and say, you know what, maybe you should be right now, just study the scriptures. Ask me about that. If I say that to you, don't take offense. What I'm trying to do is say, build that first, and then start looking. Okay. So here's a good measure beyond that, though. How do I know if I'm ready to go beyond the scriptures in terms of looking up stuff for apologetics? Well, how about some questions? And these are questions like the ones I posted. These are a little deeper. So, what's the book of Haggai about? And that doesn't sound that deep, but just off the top of your head, do you want to understand what that is? Why did Israel split into two kingdoms? And when did that happen? What common thread of eschatology runs from the prophets to the Gospels to Revelation that will help us answer questions about God's hands working during wartime? Okay? Because that sometimes comes up in apologetics. What's the difference, if any, between how God deals with the idea of slavery in the Old Testament and in the New Testament? So if you don't know where to begin in answering these questions, then it's probably better to stop Googling things and get in the scriptures and learn them inside out. And then ask your pastor for a little help. The one thing I always will be glad for is to spend a little time with you to help you understand the scriptures better. So remember this too. Imitation's the best form of flattery. I mean, it's an incredible thing that somebody would want to be saying the things you do. So I'm sure apologists are very glad when somebody listens to them and repeats their stuff because it's very flattering. A good apologist is going to tell you, though, don't be parroting me. I could be wrong. And we don't need to just watch something and parrot it and think that that's equipping us. And if we don't understand the things I've said, then that's what we're going to do. We're just going to follow along and just repeat what we've heard. We need to have the deep knowledge within us, within our study, within our efforts. And if you do consult resources, here are three things to consider. First of all, there are bad resources, and I mean bad ones. Inaccurate, shallow, some silly. This is often found in the realm of what we call popular apologetics. In this sense, that is apologetics for Google scholars, as I call it. Stay away from that stuff, okay? If you want to know how to combat a Jehovah's Witness and you run to the internet, I'm going to tell you right now, you probably are not going to be in a good place. So there's a lot of bad stuff out there, and just because it exists don't mean it's true. And again, if you can't tell between the two because you don't have enough first source knowledge, then there's no way to determine that. Then there's this. There's more in-depth stuff than popular apologetics, but it's not, and I want to use that term carefully because you can nuance some things. The stuff I'm getting ready to say is more popular apologetics too. It can be considered that, I guess, but it's stuff that's a deeper level than the inaccurate bad stuff I talked about. It's not exhaustive, and it's usually very specific in its intent. Much of this is good and reliable stuff. It's what you find with Ravi Zacharias, for example. But remember, and even with Ravi, he holds an honorary doctorate, not an earned one. So when you see that doctor, that's an honorary doctorate. He did not earn a doctorate. And that doesn't matter in terms of some things. It does matter in this way. He's not to the level of academic apologetics some other people are. So he's not generally on the level of academic apologetics, but he is very nuanced his whole ministry in a particular way that has a very important purpose, and he's very, very good at it. He's someone you can count on, but you need to learn yourself first. Okay? If you're not able to handle the whole counsel of God's Word, you should probably listen to a little bit of Ravi and a whole lot of reading the Scriptures. Okay? That's just a good type of measure for you to use. Then there's the academic level of apologetics. You're probably not going to find this very helpful. And most of you aren't, and it may even bore you to no end. And that's one of the reasons it's probably not very helpful. It can be so nuanced that it can be just exhausting reading. And so I realize this isn't a level that most people are even going to want to be in. But once you have a good grasp of the Bible and theology, and once you have heard some good foundational and reliable, a deeper popular type apologetics, you may want to understand a particular topic at a deeper level. For instance, maybe you want to study the problem of evil at a deeper level. Okay, this is where you have people like John Frame and Cornelius Van Til and people like this. They have all kinds of resources out there. Ask me if you have questions about those deeper topics once you get the first two tiers mastered. Finally, remember, we're called to defend the faith. This means getting ourselves into the midst of conversations. We can sit and learn all we want to from videos, from the scriptures, or anything. If all it's doing is spiritually constipating us, then nothing happened. What we learn is supposed to have a sanctifying effect on our character first, and second, it's supposed to come out in the way that we are able to share and teach truth. Okay? If those two things aren't happening, there's no reason for it. If all we want is knowledge, then we haven't done anything. And I can tell you, as somebody who's done an incredible amount of I guess, college and master's level work in theology, apologetics, and stuff, there's a lot of these books that I don't even remember what they said because I did a book review about them. I kind of got the grasp of it. And it's been a long time, and I would have to actually get it out to really interact with it very well. In other words, some knowledge just goes on the shelf. Knowledge produces wisdom, produces a sanctified character, and it produces opportunities for us to get busy having conversations with people. And that is the purpose of even studying apologetics at all. So tomorrow I want us to start going through a book together. I'm just going to outline the book basically. And it's kind of a fun book, so I think it might be fun to do together. I think a lot of you will get a lot out of this. I'm going to incorporate some key passages of scripture to go along with the book as we go through it. So don't forget to comment or text or call me. Let me know whether you are watching these apologetics lessons and if there's something you want me to cover or something you want me to teach in addition to apologetics, okay? So please help me to know that, and then I can help you, and we can do this as well as we possibly can. All right, so we will see you here tomorrow about 4 o'clock again for apologetics. I'll try to post a devotional in the morning, and y'all have a great evening.